Dub, dub, da, dub, da, dub, da, dub, dub. Yes.
My name is Jane, and I am 18, and this is where I hang out with my friends. We are deeply concerned about the problems facing Nigeria, but when it comes to doing something about it, we would rather sit on the fence.
Hold up. Dub, 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 da, dub, dub, da, dub, dub. Dub, dub, da, dub, da, dub, da, dub, dub. Yes. Dub, 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 da, dub, dub, da, dub, dub. Dub, dub, da, dub, da, dub, da, dub, dub. Yes.
A very beautiful afternoon and welcome to News on the Hour, coming to you from the studio W News Frontier Television. I am Temitope Oladipo.
And I am Adebola Adeleke.
First, the headlines. PDP crisis, Sheriff McCarthy clashed over planned convention. The Sultan of Sokoto cautioned Nigeria against civil war. Military foils suicide attack in Maduguri, kills 3. On the business scene, government completes 22 megawatt Ajaokuta power plant. Facebook nears 2 billion monthly users. Shell profit surges as oil price rises. And on the foreign scene, monsoon offensive gains fresh momentum as army attack IS from the northwest. CZPM Sobukta will not earn in cabinet resignation today. Thai rights lawyer faces up to 150 years in prison for lawyer insults.
And on to sport, Boboye pleased with play 2 reinforcements. And to tennis, Wimbledon qualifying facilities could cope with Maria Sharapova. Injury boost for United as Mourinho prioritizes Europe. Lewin signed a new 5-year contract at Everton.
And on to the story now, moving to the national scene. Attempted suicide attack on Maduguri by 3 females were foiled on Wednesday. According to a press statement by the spokesman of the National Emergency Management Authority, Abdubakar Ibrahim, the 3 teenage females with explosive trap on them were lost. Ibrahim said the security officer who was among those who intercepted the 3 teenagers was injured. The statement said 3 female teenage suicide bombers attempted to attack military outposts, popularly known as Guatano, along Muna Garage. They were sighted trying to gain access to the premises and were shot by the securities, leading to the detonation of their concealed explosive, which killed all the 3 of them and injured one of the security personnel. Ibrahim revealed that the corpses of the 3 were evacuated to the Borno State Specialist Hospital Maduguri by the emergency aid workers. The Senate President Dr. Bukola Saraki had said that what Nigerians called friction was normal in every democracy and denied any rift with the presidency. According to him, The Senate claimed 185 of 196 nominees presented to it by the presidency to imply the relationship between the both arms of government. Speaking to the Senate press call as part of the activities to mark the World Press Freedom Day, Saraki noted the cordial relationship explained why senators will continue to pass motion after motion to draw attention to critical national issues. He said they have passed critical laws that will make positive impact on the standard of living and rate of development in the country, and that they have investigated key issues that have helped to expose corruption in the government offices. He said further that they have equally treated petitions from people who feel oppressed but believe the Senate could help them seek redress and get justice instead of resorting to prolonged litigation. The Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Muhammad Sa'ad Abubakar III, has cautioned Nigeria against making the mistakes that prolonged Nigeria into 30-month civil war. Abubakar, who was that country would not be able to survive another civil war, added that it was necessary for every Nigerian to work towards peaceful coexistence. The monarch spoke while delivering his keynote address at the Traditional Rulers' Day during the ongoing Rivers State's Golden Jubilee celebration, with the theme, Traditional Institution in Nigeria and the Challenge of Re-engineering Viable Local Economies. Explaining that traditional institution had been in existence before the Nigeria was created, Abubakar maintained that Nigerians had what it takes to bring the best out of the country. He urged politicians not to see the traditional institution as a threat, but they should work with it to develop the country. The national chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Senator Ali Modu Sheriff, and the chairman of the party's national committee, Senator Ahmed McCarthy, has disagreed again over the plan to hold the party's national convention. While Sheriff insisted that he will go ahead with the plan to hold the convention, McCarthy said doing so would prejudice the outcome of the ongoing litigation over the leadership of the party at the Supreme Court. The McCarthy Group has approached the Apex Court asking it to nullify the judgment of the Court of Appeal, Port Harcourt in Rivers State, while nullify the election of the caretaker committee. The judgment of the appellate court, which resorted the leadership of Sheriff, has been used by the former governor of Borno State to gain access to the party national secretariat. This has been criticized by the McCarthy Group, saying the police refused to open the secretariat for it when it won at the Federal High Court. A Minna High Court has granted a former Niger State Governor, Babangida Aliyu, and his Chief of Army Staff, Umar Nasko, bail with an option of fine. The presiding judge, Justice Aliyu Mayaki, said the bail conditions for Aliyu will be 150 million naira, with two sureties who will deposit the certificate of occupancies of two landed properties worth 200 million naira each. While ruling on the bail of Umar Nasko, who was the People's Democratic Party governorship candidate in the state in 2015, Mayaki said bail will be granted with an option of 100 million naira, even as NASCO will provide two sureties with landed properties located within the state and worth 150 million naira each. In an interview with newsmen, counsel for NASCO, Mama Usman, however, said the bills were too harsh, saying he, NASCO, was a man of exemplary character who would never jump bail. We bring you more stories after this timeout. Please stay with us. Glad to know you are still with us. It's still news on the hour, coming to you from the studios of the New Frontiers Television. We move straight to the business stories. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, has commenced move to attract 20 companies to make substantial investments worth $20 million in order to meet the federal government target of increasing refinery capacity in the country. Investigation shows that the Apex Oil Corporation has in the past few weeks been engaging with the investors in order to inform, educate, as well as assist them to prepare various packages required in the process of applying for license. Confirming the development on the sideline of a forum on modular refinery in Lagos, the General Manager Refinery Directorate, Mr. Amir Danladi, who is involved in the process, disclosed that the NNPC decided to play the role in order to guide potential investors to invest in the sector. He said this became very important, especially as many potential investors did not know much about the sector. The federal government may get the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, to relax the ban imposed on 41 items from the foreign exchange window. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo said the government will consider policy-driven restrictions to promote local manufacturing of 41 items such as rice and toothpicks. He said in stabilizing the macroeconomic environment, they are focused on aligning fiscal with monetary policy and nudging the central bank towards the objective of more market-determined exchange rates. Recall that the Apex Bank in 2015 introduced a policy restricting importers of some 41 items from sourcing from the official foreign exchange window in order to support the naira after it was hit by a fall in the oil prices. The policy was, however, led to the closure of many plants in various sectors. Towards the rehabilitation of the Ajaokuta Steel Complex, the federal government has completed the first phase of the ACSL Thermal Power Plant. The immediate past director of mines at the Ministry of Mines and State Development, Mr. Dauda Awojobi, who disclosed this at the training session for the journalists in Lokoja, Kogi State, said following the rehabilitation of the plant, it has now added 22 megawatts to the national grid. He also disclosed that the government has created 119,532 direct employment from mid-tier operators and established 63 private minerals buying centers across the country. The federal government retrieved the steel complex from the concessionaire after a legal tussle. The federal government has approved the appointment of transaction advisors for the proposed national career and concession of the nation's airports. This was one of the decisions reached at the meeting of the Federal Executive Council, presided over by the Vice President Yemi Osinbajo on Wednesday. The Minister of State of Aviation at the Surika said since most of the programs and projects were supposed to be on public-private partnership basis, the government was guided by the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission regulations. Surika stated that one of the processes is to appoint a transaction advisor who will give advisory services, kickstart, and lead the process. The National Bureau of Statistics has said that the country's foreign and domestic debt stood at $11.41 billion and 14.02 trillion naira as of December 2016. The Bureau stated this in its state and federal debt stock data, which was released in Abuja. A breakdown of the country's foreign debts according to the report bilateral, while the balance of $3.22 billion was sourced from the China Exim Bank. The report stated that while the federal government alone accounted for 68.72% of the country's total foreign debts, all the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory accounted for the remaining 31.28%. Similarly, the report stated that the total federal government accounted for 78.89% of Nigeria's total domestic debt, while the 36 states and the FCT were responsible for the balance of 21.11%. The report added that the Lagos State had the highest foreign debt profile among the 36 states and the FCT, accounting for 38.70%, while Kaduna 6.25%, Edo State 5.15%, Cross River State 3.2%, and Ogun State 2.90% followed. The revenue target of Nigerian Customs Service for 2016 fell by 216.5 billion naira. The Controller General of Customs, Colonel Ahmed Ali, retired, told the House of Representatives in Abuja on Wednesday. This was a dip of 23.11% as against the original target of 937.3 billion naira set for the year. The agency only succeeded in collecting 722.7 billion naira, or 78% of the target revenue between January and December last year. The NCS collected 177.9 billion naira as value-added tax on imports, bringing the total revenue collection to 896.6 billion naira. Ali had appeared before the House Committee on Customs to defend the Custom 2017 budget estimates. The federal government has started efforts to diversify economy in 2016 by focusing on non-oil revenue resources, particularly through the Nigerian Customs Services. But Ali told the lawmakers that certain factors led to the drop in the revenue allocation. Royal Dutch Shell profits surged in the first 3 months of the year on the back of the rising oil prices. The Anglo-Dutch giant said profits on the current cost of supply measure, which strips out price fluctuation, jumped to $3.4 billion from $1 billion last year. A 55% rise in oil prices in the first quarter of 2027 compared with the year earlier was the main driver of the profits. Shell joins rival BP, ExxonMobil, Chevron, and Total in reporting better than expected results. Oil and gas production, known as upstream, rose 2% in the quarter to 3.752 million barrels of oil, equivalent to 3.905 million in the first quarter of 2016. A number of new fields continue to ramp up output, particularly in Brazil and Kazakhstan. Any from refinery, marketing, and chemicals also rose 20% to $205 billion. Bank giant HSBC has reported a 19% fall in profit for the first 3 months of 2017 as it bid to restore flagging revenues after restructuring. But the fall in profit to $5 billion beat analyst forecasts, and HSBC shares rose 3%. The lower profits were due mainly to accounting changes, while the result last year included proceeds from the sale of Brazilian businesses. Chief Executive Stuart Gulliver called the figure a good set of results. The figures are the first since Europe's largest bank announced the appointment of a new chairman in March. The move was part of the management overhaul that will also see HSBC choose a new chief executive. Following a big drop in profit in 2015, HSBC embarked on a restructuring that led to thousands of job cuts, branch closures, asset sales, and a bigger focus on Asia. Still on the business news, Facebook profits have jumped in the first 3 months of the year as the social network closes on the 2 billion users, according to the latest results. The number of people using Facebook each month increased to 1.94 billion, of which nearly 1.3 billion use it daily. The US tech giant reported profit of just over $3 billion in the first quarter, a 76% rise year on year. However, it was the growth in the ad revenues would slow down. The company has also come under sustained pressure in recent weeks over its handling of hate speech, child abuse, and self-harm on the social network. This is News on the Hour, coming to you from the studios of the New Frontiers Television. We bring you more stories after this break. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying tuned. Moving straight to the foreign scene. China says it wants to be good neighbors with North Korea after the isolated country's news agency published a rare criticism of Chinese state media commentaries calling for tougher sanctions over the North nuclear program. The United States has urged China, North Korea's only major ally, to do more to rein in its neighbor nuclear and missile programs, which have prompted an assertive response from the Trump administration, warning that an era of strategic patience is over. A commentary carried by North Korea news agency referred to recent commentaries in two of China's newspapers, which it said were widely known as media speaking for the official stand of the Chinese party and government. In Beijing, Foreign Ministry spokesman Zheng Shuang said China's position was consistent and clear, which it maintained is to develop friendly, good neighborly relations with the North Korea. And from the United States is negotiating with China on a possible stronger UN Security Council response, such as new sanctions to North Korea repeated ballistic missile launches, which the 15-member body normally condemned in a statement. It was not immediately clear how open Beijing might be to the new sanctions. The Council has traditionally boosted sanctions in response to North Korea's 5 nuclear tests and 2 long-range rocket launches. Sanctions were first imposed on Pyongyang in 2016. North Korea has in the past year stepped up its missile tests, firing dozens of various types of rockets, according to North Korea. The most recent test, which failed Friday, following a UN Security Council meeting on North Korea, chaired by U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. A legal watchword Thai lawyer for human rights have said that a prominent Thai human rights lawyer faces a prison term for up to 150 years if convicted on 10 counts of royal defamation under Thailand harsh royal insult law. 50-year-old Pret Prankul provided legal assistance to members of a political opposition group, the United Front for Democracy Against Dictatorship, and served as legal counsel in high-profile royal insult case. He was detained in a raid on his home by police and troops on the weekend. Prewet appeared in a Bangkok court on Wednesday and was charged with 10 counts of royal insult and 3 counts of breaking Section 116 of Thailand Criminal Code, the equivalent of sedition. And from France, a French opinion poll has shown that centrist candidate Emmanuel Macron was found more convincing than far-rightist Marine Le Pen in a key televised debate on Wednesday ahead of this Sunday decisive second round of French presidential election. Some 63% of people surveyed found the pro-EU former economic minister more convincing than the leader of the National Front, Le Pen. 2/3 of the people who voted for far-leftist Jean-Luc Mélenchon in the first round of April 23rd found Macron more convincing, as did 58% of those who had backed conservative Francois Fillon. A senior Iranian official says the country is in talk with Britain Export Credit Agency to facilitate the financing of aircraft sales to state airline Iran Air as part of its pact with world power to lift sanctions over its nuclear program. Iranian plan to buy more than 180 jets from Airbus and Boeing is the most visible economic deal on the table after major power last year lifted most sanctions on Iran in return for restriction on its nuclear activities. Meanwhile, financing for the purchases has been hard to secure because most Western banks are holding back, concerned about the future of the 2015 agreement after the U.S. President Donald Trump called it a bad deal and ordered a review. The U.S.-backed Iraqi offensive to take back Mosul from the Islamic State gained fresh momentum today, with an armored division trying to advance into the city from the northern side. The militants are now besieged in the northwestern corner of Mosul, which include the historic Old City Center and the medieval Grand Al-Nuri Mosque and its landmark leaning minaret where the black flag has been flying since June 2014. The Iraqi Army's 9th Armored Division and the Rapid Response Units of the Interior Ministry have opened a new front in the northwest of the city. The attack will help the Elite Counter-Terrorism Service, CTS, and Interior Ministry Federal Police Troop, who are painstakingly advancing from the south. Still on Iraq, Iraq Armed Force opened a new front against IS in Mosul today, advancing on a militant enclave from the northwest. A military commander stated that the Army 9th Armored Division and the Rapid Response Unit of the Interior Ministry were headed toward the city, adding that the attack will help the Elite Counter-Terrorism Service, CTS, and Interior Ministry Federal Police Troop were painstakingly advancing from the south. The US-led international coalition is providing key and ground support to the offensive in Mosul, Islamic State de facto capital in Iraq, which started in October. The militants are now besieged in the northwestern corner of Mosul, which include the historic Old City Center and the Grand Nuri Mosque. More story comes to you after the short break. Please stay with us. It's still news on the hour coming to you from the studios of the New Frontiers Television. Still on the foreign scene, the Syrian government has expressed support for a Russian proposal to create 4 de-escalation zones intended to quell fighting in the country's 6-year-old civil war. Speak talks sponsored by Russia and Turkey are taking place in Zagreb this week, and Russia said it hoped to negotiate today the creation of 4 de-escalation zones in Syria. The Syrian army opposition suspended its participation in the talks on Wednesday and demanded an end to the government's bombing of areas under its controls. According to a foreign ministry statement, the Syrian Arab Republic supports the Russian initiative on the escalation zone and confirmed its commitment to the cessation of hostility regime signed December 30, 2016, which include not bombing these regions. The report also said the Syrian army will continue to fight against what it termed terrorist groups across Syria. Still on Syria, the Syrian armed opposition will return today to the talks on settling the Syrian conflicts which are being held in the Kazakh capital, Astana. A diplomatic source close to the negotiation made this known today in Astana, shouting that the rebel delegation had not yet arrived at the venue. The Syrian army opposition said on Wednesday it has suspended its participation in the peace talks and demanded an end to government bombings of areas under its control. FBI Director James Comey says it made him mainly nauseous to think its announcement of the reopening of an investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails affected the 2016 presidential election, but he had no regrets and will make the same decision again. In 4 hours of testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee, Comey delivered his most impassioned defense yet of a decision that many Democrats believe cost them the White House, telling Congress 11 days before the November 8th election that the FBI had uncovered a new trove of Clinton-related emails. Comey said he felt he had to speak out at that time because he had repeatedly told lawmakers the Clinton email probe was over. 3 successive Mexican presidents had failed to halt a cycle of violence against journalists and impunity for their killers that is stifling freedom of expression and threatening democratic stability. This is contained in a statement released by watchdog group in the country. The Committee to Protect Journalists, CPJ, urged President Enrique Pena to prioritize protection for the media in the last year of his government, after at least 21 journalists were slain in the past decade with complete impunity. The violence has created an environment of fear that goes beyond journalism. CPJ's Americas Program Director Carlos Loria said, speaking on the same day that the United Nations designated as World Press Freedom Day. Czech Prime Minister Szabó Targ will not deliver his cabinet resignation to the president today, but he remains committed to resigning in midday. A government spokesman, Martin Heiner, made this known today. Szabó Targ announced on Tuesday that he and his government will step down less than 6 months before its term finishes to resolve a long-running dispute with billionaire finance minister Andrej Babis, his main political rival. The Social Democrat leader was supposed to hand in the resignation at 13:15 GMT, effective midday. The spokesman further said that the Prime Minister will be at the Castle, where he will consult with the situation, where he will consult on the situation with the President, adding that he will tell the President about the planned solution, give him an analysis, and will set the date for delivering his resignation. Moving straight to Britain, there is no cause for alarm about the welfare of Queen Elizabeth or her husband, Prince Philip, after all senior royal staff were summoned to a meeting at Buckingham Palace today. A British newspaper has reported that senior aides from across the country had been called to the palace for the emergency meeting, leading to wide speculation on social media about the health of the royals. Elizabeth met Prime Minister Theresa May on Wednesday to formally agree to the dissolution of Parliament ahead of June election, while Philip opened a new stand at Lord Cricket Ground in central London. The royal staff was addressed by the Lord Chamberlain, the most senior official of the royal household, and the Queen's private secretary, Sir Christopher Gates. The United Nations Food Agency world food prices fell 1.8% in April from the month before, as value declined for all agricultural commodities except meat. The Food and Agriculture Organization FAO Food in Price Index, which measures the monthly changes for the basket of cereal, oilseed and dairy products, meat and sugar, averaged 168 points in April, down 3.1% points from March. FAO marginally raised its forecast for global cereals output in the 2017-18 session to 2.59 billion tons. Global wheat production is expected to hit 740 million tons, short of last year's record harvest. You are still watching news on the hour from the studio of New Frontiers Television. Bringing to you now is the sport news with Adebola Adeleke.
And now on to sports, starting with the world of cycling. Giro d'Italia organizers have abandoned plans for a Best Downhill Rider category after criticism from riders that the idea was life-threatening. The plans would have seen riders timed on 10 downhill sections during the 3-week race, with prizes for each day and the overall fast descender. Belgian rider Walter Weyland died after crashing on a descent during stage 3 of the 2011 Giro d'Italia. The 100th edition of the race begins on Friday. RCS Sport said that reaction to the proposal suggested the classification, which was to be sponsored by tire manufacturer Pirelli, could be potentially misunderstood. The Association of Professional Cyclists said it was very happy RCS has come to a solution for the good of the riders. The Giro is one of the 3-week Grand Tours during the cycling season, together with the Tour de France and Vuelta a España. And from cycling to football, from the Premier League, Everton striker Dominic Calvert-Lewin is keen to improve on his breakthrough season at the club after signing a new 5-year contract on Wednesday. The 20-year-old, who joined Ronald Koeman's side last August from Sheffield United, has made 10 appearances so far this season, scoring his maiden goals in 4-0 victory over Hull City in March. And to Champions League, Gonzalo Higuain scored both goals as an imperious Juventus beat Monaco 2-0 in the Champions League semi-final first leg on Wednesday to take a huge step towards next month's final in Cardiff. Both of Higuain's goals came from Dani Alves' assist, with the Argentine hitman rounding off a breathtaking team move to open the scoring just before the half-hour mark and converting the second from close range after the break. While the second leg in Turin next Tuesday will be no formality, Juventus have never lost a two-legged European tie to French opposition, and so impressive were they at the Stade Louis II that it is hard to imagine Monaco reviving. To Europa League, Manchester United's injury crisis has eased in time for today's Europa League semi-final first leg at Celta Vigo, as Jose Mourinho confirmed Paul Pogba, Phil Jones and Chris Smalling are fit to return in Spain. Mourinho will also have Eric Bailly and Joan Mata available to compensate for the season-ending injuries suffered by top scorers Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Marcos Rojo and Luke Shaw. However, the Portuguese blamed United's injury problems on their struggles to secure a top 4 place in the Premier League and insisted winning the Europa League is now his priorities to secure Champions League qualification next season. However, Mourinho believes there is also prestige to begin from becoming only the 5th European club to complete the set of winning all 4 major European trophies. Only Ajax, Chelsea, Bayern Munich and Juventus have won all of the Champions League, Europa League, and now defunct Cup Winners' Cup and UEFA Super Cup. Ajax Amsterdam produced a performance worthy of the club's illustrious past when they crushed Olympique Lyonnais 4-1 on Wednesday to move to the brink of their first European final since 1996. Bertrand Traoré led the way with 2 goals in an enthralling end-to-end Europa League semi-final first leg, in which the Dutch side fielded the starting lineup with an average age of under 22-year-old. Danish teenager Kasper Dolberg and Amir Younis also netted for Ajax, while Mathieu Valbuena replied for the French visitors, who could easily have scored 3 or 4 goals themselves. 4-time European champions, Ajax were once one of Europe's biggest clubs, but are no longer able to compete financially with teams from England, Spain and Germany. The last European final appearance was in the Champions League in 1996 when they lost to Juventus on penalties. And now to Spain. Malaga stunned Sevilla with 2 late strikes in a 4-2 win on Monday to leave Jorge Sampaoli's side still at slight risk of slipping out of the top 4 in La Liga. Despite 2 goals from Franco Vasquez, Sevilla's defeat leaves them on 68 points, 3 behind third place Atletico Madrid, but now only 5 clear of 5th place Villarreal, and they still have to visit Real Madrid on May 14th. Sampaoli's side have slumped after being eliminated from the Champions League, and if their bad form continues into their final 3 matches, then Fran Escriba's Villarreal could yet take advantage. Villarreal though must face Barcelona at the Nou Camp on Saturday before their potentially winnable games against Deportivo La Coruña and Valencia. Still in Spain, Real Madrid defender Dani Carvajal sustained an injured hamstring in the steam 3-0 victory over City rivals Atletico in the first leg of the Champions League semi-final. Carvajal suffered the injury after falling awkwardly after going up for a contested header. Real offered no time frame for a possible return, but Spanish media spoke of a potential 4-week layoff. And now to the Nigerian Professional Football League. MFM FC attacking pair of Stephen Odey and Shikiru Olatubosun have been handed call-ups to the Nigerian national team, the Super Eagles. The Nigerian Professional Football League leading scorer Odey and Olatubosun are 2 of the 4 players from the country's top division expected to be announced for the roster ahead of the African Cup of Nations qualifying match against South Africa in June this year. FC Ifeanyi goalkeeper Ikechukwu Ezenwa and Aqua United striker Al-Hassan Ibrahim are also in the mix. The 4 players are expected to join up with the overseas player called by Super Eagles head coach Genotro for the camp in the French island Corsica. The squad for the trip to Corsica ahead of the match-up with Bafana of South Africa is expected to be announced this week. Still in the Nigerian Professional Football League, the Remo Stars head coach Fatai Osho is confident his side will avoid the drop from the Nigerian Professional Football League at the end of the season. The Sky Blue Stars are ensconced at the bottom of the log with 19 points from 19 matches after a 0-1 reverse in Port Harcourt to last season's runner-up Rivers United on Wednesday. The newly promoted club now have the same number of matches to save themselves from ejection from the Nigerian top flight. Osho knows he faces an uphill task, but insists his charges will rise up to the occasion in the second stanza of the campaign. Many expected the club to reinforce their ranks during the transfer window, but that has not been the case. Osho reaffirmed that failure to invest in the transfer market could prove to be a blessing in disguise in the end. Remo Stars are promoted to the NPFL at the start of the season alongside 3 other clubs, ABS FC, Gombe United and Katsina United from the Nigerian National League. Plateau United head coach Kennedy Boboye has expressed delight over the recent acquisitions of the club. Bature Yaro and Stanley Okoro have both joined the Nigerian Professional Football League leaders as they look to claim unlikely title success. Boboye believes the new additions will boost the side's chances in the NPFL in the second stanza. Plateau United were beaten 1-0 by the champions Enugu Rangers in a rescheduled NPFL game in Enugu on Wednesday. Despite the reverse, United remain top of the 20-team NPFL standings, but Boboye chooses to remain calm about the side's title chances. Plateau United have amassed 5 points from 19 matches this season. And away from football and lastly to tennis, Wimbledon qualifying could cope with the levels of interest should Maria Sharapova take part in the Roehampton tournament, according to the All England club. The Russian returned from a 15-month doping ban last month and could yet qualify directly or receive a wild card when they are confirmed on 20th of June. Wimbledon's qualifying event will be ticketed for the first time this year. All England club chief Richard Lewis is absolutely confident Ryan team could cope with Sharapova's presence. Former world number 1 Sharapova, 30, reached the semi-finals in Stuttgart on her return to action last month. As a result, she is currently ranked 262, but she also needs to be closer to the top 100 to qualify directly for the main draw at Wimbledon, or the top 200 for the qualifying tournament. She has wild cards at this moment's event in Madrid and Rome, where she can pick up more points before the Wimbledon main draw entry deadline of May 22 and the qualifying deadline of the 5th of June. And that concludes the sports news and news on the hour, 12 o'clock from New Frontiers Television Studio. Handing back to Temitope Oladipo.
That's much we can take on news on the hour for this time. Don't forget to join us by 3 o'clock when we shall bring you more updates. Also, you can also watch us on all our social media platforms, on YouTube, New Frontier Television International, and on our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/NFTV1. Thanks for staying tuned. I am Temitope Oladipo.
Dub, 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 dub. Yes,